Namaste. We have some more questions. How can I find out, read and hear more about Holy Mother Sri Ma Sharada Devi? We have books on Holy Mother. Life of Holy Mother by Swami Gambhirananda Ji. It is available in English, Hindi, Bangla and other languages, I think. The other book is Gospel of Holy Mother, translated into English by Swami Nikhilananda Ji. That contains several conversations with disciples and other devotees who were with Holy Mother. So these two books you can read, and there are several other books also, like Reminiscences of Holy Mother. And these are available from the online store of Advaita Ashrama, shop.advaitashrama.org. Moving on to the next question. Namaste Swamiji, I was reading the Gospel of Ramakrishna and I came across his conversation with Pandit Shashadhar, where Sri Ramakrishna repeatedly asks him not to preach. He rather says it is God alone who preaches God, and those who have not received a command from God can't preach God. I find it very difficult to reconcile in present time. I myself tried many paths, did yoga, until I stumbled upon Swami Sarvapriyananda's video in IIT and hence began my journey in Vedanta. I wonder, should only realized beings do the preaching or should it be available to all? We can look at it this way. Pandit Shashadhar was a spiritual aspirant, sincere, and Sri Ramakrishna could see through human minds like glass cases. So, at this particular instant, he might have sensed that he was a preacher, right? So, preachers can get an ego, which can be an obstacle in spiritual life. So, that is the reason Sri Ramakrishna is warning him that without the command of God, if you preach God, you will have other adverse effects on your spiritual life, like you may have a craving for name and fame, plus it won't have the required effect on the audience. But in case of the example that you have given, like Swami Sarvapriyanandaji's videos, etc., which are doing immense benefit to millions across the world, what is happening is, he himself mentioned in his lecture here at Advaita Ashrama a few days ago that I have nothing new to say. So in that sense, he is not a preacher. He is sharing the wisdom which is more than 5,000 years old. But God chooses the instrument, and then when you have a fine instrument like that of Sarvapriyanandaji, the flair and the way the lecture is articulated, that influences the people much more than what they read in books or if they wait for someone enlightened to come and tell him. And how do you know that Maharaj did not have a command? We don't know, right? So the way the message is spreading, we should see the divine plan in that also. And there is a universal force, the Kripa Shakti, working always. So from that aspect also, when we look at it, it is creating satsangs, holy company, and arranges for all these books and videos to spread the message of God or message of spirituality. So there is nothing to worry about. But if you have a desire to preach, then from the subjective point of view, what you should take care is, you should consider it as a sadhana, whatever you are sharing. So that is how the monks of the Ramakrishna order, we are asked to preach, right? We have to spread the message. So how do we handle it? We take it as sadhana. It is a seva, by spreading the name of the Lord, spreading the message of spirituality. We are considering ourselves blessed rather than thinking that we are helping the world. So that becomes our sadhana. Next question from the same Rishi. Swamiji, what does Vedanta say about social stratification? Is social stratification a means to an end or end in itself? Besides, how can we practice same-sightedness in a world where we may have to take disciplinary actions excuse me, in corporates or organizations? Should we skip the ideal of karma yoga, seeing the self in all, in those cases? Vedanta has nothing much to say about social stratification because Vedanta deals with the spiritual life. It's an individual phenomenon. The individuals raise themselves and evolve. And as a byproduct, the society also evolves. And vice versa, where society is tuned to spiritually evolve the individuals. So this social stratification has been there in all the nations. Even now it is there. Just that in India it was called caste, other places it is called class. We have different sections of society in all nations. Some places it is based on money. So you have privileges based on that. So Swamiji says when this caste became associated with privileges, that is when the problem started and became rotten system. So we should always remember that we should not lower the human dignity or judge a person based on what they are doing or the job they do or the kind of knowledge they have. We should see the divine. We should try to see the divine. Having said that, so is social stratification a means to an end or an end? It is a means to an end. The end is liberation. So in ancient times, the society itself was tuned. Everything was structured so that the individual can rise more and more, evolve spiritually. If you see that 16 annas made a rupee, so all those things were pointing towards the spiritual aspect of life. Even marriage or the entire society was construed in such a way that individuals can raise themselves from where they stand to the next level. Swamiji says in India the ideals are Tyaga and Seva, renunciation and service. Strengthen her, that is India, along these channels and nothing more needs to be done. Some other countries may have some other ideals like political will could be the strong force in acting in that country. But here, renunciation and service has to be the motto. So that is why India, Atiti Devo Bhava, all those things were there in the past. So more and more, when we forget that, then if you start worshipping the dollar worship, when it starts, then the aim of life becomes just accumulating money, then the social structure, everything gets distorted. And then we no longer see the meaning of all the small things which were working fine all this while. So everything has its good and bad. We cannot say that the current society is completely bad. We have all this technological development because of which sitting at home you are able to get satsang or whatever knowledge you want. So everything has its positives. So society, as far as society stratification is concerned, we don't have to bother much as long as we as individuals take care of the dignity of people around us and act in a responsible way. How can we practice same-sightedness in a world where we have to take disciplinary actions in corporates or organizations? Same-sightedness is a personal outlook, right? So it need not interfere with one's dharma. Suppose I have to scold someone, I will scold without hating that person. You don't have to hate, or you don't have to think or feel superior to that person just because he committed a mistake. We are humans and we are bound to commit mistakes sometime or the other because we do things. We are not like walls or cows who don't lie or who don't make mistake. Should we skip the ideal of karma yoga, seeing the self in all, in those cases? Absolutely not. As I said, there won't be any personal grudge or personal factor involved in following your dharma. If you are the superior and you have to take disciplinary action, so point out that whatever is the mistake or whatever is the process to be followed, you just follow that process and let that person know that there is nothing personal in this. And if you're sincere, that person will feel. That person, if he is not so unconscious that he has to hate you, if that is not the case, then most people will acknowledge that it is their mistake and this action is, disciplinary action is the result of what they have done. And from a subjective perspective, if I am the one at the receiving end, how should I look at it? Suppose I have done a mistake. It's fine. Own it and take the disciplinary action, receive it. And then you're free. Only then you're free. If you start grudging and complaining, then that's a slavish mentality because you know you have done a mistake. Now that doesn't mean that you have to trumpet publicly all your mistakes. You don't have to do that. But wherever you find that something has been done by me which is not correct and a punishment or a disciplinary action is being taken on based on that, that will only elevate you once you accept it wholeheartedly. I am reminded of an incident which happened in Delhi, our Delhi center, more than 50 years ago. Swami Ranganathananji Maharaj, he told this in one of his reminiscences. So he said, he was the in charge at that time, and this Delhi center has a library, big library. So one of the members, he did not return the book on time. So it was due, and then 7 days or so he was delayed, and he had to pay a late fee. Now this person is arguing with the librarian about that, and he was haggling. So the librarian took him to Maharaj. Maharaj told him that you are free only when you pay the fee. You have done a mistake, that is fine. Everybody makes mistakes. But then you own it and then pay the fee and be free. Don't be like a slave, haggling over the fine. So that should be our attitude if we are at the receiving end. So these are the questions as of now. Thank you for listening. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat.